Hi, bookworms. Welcome to The Best Book Ever, the podcast where we talk about your favorite books. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and my guest today is Azhelle Wade. Azhelle, also known as the Toy Coach, has been working in the toy industry for over 10 years with companies like Toys R Us, Party City, and Madame Alexander. She has 3 patented toy products, multiple design awards, and is the host of the well-known podcast, Making It in the Toy Industry. Azhelle loves helping people outside the industry find their way in so they can bring their toy ideas to life. Her online program, the Toy Creators Academy, clarifies the development and launch process with step-by-step guidance. Her mantra for her followers is, make it toyetic. Bookworms, I ask you, how could someone with such a fun job choose a book that I think might be the scariest thing I've read in my whole life? Today I get to ask Azhelle that very question when she joins me to talk about why The Hot Zone by Richard Preston is the best book ever. Bookworms, this week I want to tell you about the Sisters Uptown bookstore in the Washington Heights neighborhood of New York. Sisters Uptown is a Black-owned bookstore, cultural center, and community resource center founded in 2007. Sisters Uptown is currently closed to in-store customers, but they are offering online ordering for door pickup, and they ship. I really recommend that you check them out at sistersuptownbookstore.com. Remember, this is not an ad or a paid sponsorship, just a shout-out for a great independently owned bookstore. The holidays are creeping up on us fast, and I plan to support indie bookstores going forward. From now on, all of the book links in my show notes will point you to an indie bookstore. Please consider purchasing there if you can. As always, if you're buying for yourself, remember to check with your library. They can usually order the books that you want, and the good news is authors still get paid when you check out a library book, so it's a win-win for all of us. Now, back to the show. Hello, Azhelle. Welcome to the Best Book Ever podcast.
Thank you for having me, Julie. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, but I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What the hell?
It's a great book. Great.
I have to tell you, I was so excited when I landed you as a guest and I went around boasting to everyone. You will not believe the job this woman has. I'm so excited. She's probably going to choose something like The Wizard of Oz or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And we're going to have an ice cream party.
Yeah. No.
And then you made me read what I think is genuinely
the other book I was going to choose was worse, but
oh my God. I can honestly say I think this is the scariest book I have ever read in my life. That first chapter almost gave me heart failure.
No, stop. I know. Well, you're reading it in a pandemic. That probably didn't help.
It was a bad choice.
That did not help. Mm-mm.
No, it was rough. And I had to, generally what I like to do with the podcast books is I read a little, I just break it up throughout the week and I read every day. And I started reading this one and I cleared the schedule and went, I can't sleep on this one.
That's what I did.
Blaze through, right?
I read it in like a day. I was like 12 when I read that book.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I have a lot of questions.
Okay. Yeah. This is the favorite.
Okay. First of all, let's start with, you have a really, really fun and fascinating and wonderful job.
Yeah.
One of those jobs that I think we all wish exists when we were kids, and then it never occurs to us that your job actually exists. Yeah. It's magical. Will you tell me about it?
So I've worked in the toy industry for the past 10 years, designing toy products and developing brands and pitching ideas. And it's been a wild ride. And recently I actually like quit my full-time toy job and went out on my own, which is crazy because even hearing you say like, oh, you have the best job ever. I'm like, I technically quit the best job ever to make my own job.
Were you a big toy kid? Were you fascinated by toys, or is it a mechanical instinct?
Well, I was obsessed with Polly Pockets for sure. And
Mm.
then my dad, this is going to make me sound so spoiled, but then there was like a phase, like several years where my dad was like taking us to Toys R Us every week to get a new toy. And then he would like play scratch offs. And if he won, we would get like a really big toy, you know?
Oh.
And if he didn't win, we would get like a regular price toy, like a small, I think it was a $10 toy at the time, maybe we'd get every week. And that's how I built up my Polly Pocket collection. And I don't know if maybe that combined with I love kids is probably what happened. Like Toys R Us and toys are such a fond memory because I remember me and my brother and my dad going together every week to Toys R Us, and we'd look and pick out. It was like an experience. Like, what are you getting? What am I getting? And adding this to my collection. And then that weekend I'd be setting up all my Polly Pockets and watching them grow. So I don't know. That was honestly, I haven't thought about that in a while, but that was a really awesome part of my childhood. So maybe it did have something to do with it.
So you really gravitated to the collectible toys.
Back then, I wonder if they really knew they were making collectibles. I don't know if they did because they were all just individual Polly Pocket play sets, but I collected the hell out of them. Yeah. Like they weren't meant to attach, but like I would line them up like a little village, like just make all the little Polly neighborhood and then use the little Polly cars. And like they were all like different, like they didn't all match because they like had big ones and small ones and mini ones and cars, but I loved it anyway.
How do you invent a toy? What's a day in the life of a toy inventor?
Ooh. So it depends because you might be doing two things. So you might be like inventing a new idea, but then you also just might be designing something simple like an action figure, right? So if you're just designing something simple, usually you pull up a bunch of reference images. You either print out make a real board of toy ideas, or you make like a virtual board, like a Pinterest board. And you're just looking at it and you're just like loosely sketching like what you think the doll or the play set or the action figure is going to look like. And you're just sketching it out. And eventually you get something you like. So then you refine that sketch even more. And then you get something that you like even more. And then you'll color that thing in and make it look like a real concept board. And then that you usually take to whoever's in charge of the project. If it's a client or your boss, and you say like, this is my concept for this doll or game or play set or whatever. Here's what I think it should look like. And depending on the size of the company or what you're doing, it might just be a conversation, or it might be a full-on meeting where everybody kind of gives in their input and tears it apart, but in a good way. Like, here's what we think you should do. And that looks cool, but what about this? And it gets really collaborative at that point. And from there, once you figure out your final like direction that you're going to go in, you might either redraw that drawing to look more like what the new idea is. And then honestly, you might hire someone to help you build like a 3D model, or do like turnaround drawings, like in like a plan drawing, so that you can then work with a factory and actually get this thing made. So that's like the best part, when you actually say, okay, this is what we're going forward with. This is how much it should cost. This is the size of it. These are how the pieces work. I want to start making a sample of this. And then you work with the factory and they help build you a sample, and you kind of get that sample and like you get to play with it and test it. And then you give back comments. And usually the first sample is terrible, and you get it back and you're like, what happened to my invention? This looks terrible. And then you just give back really detailed comments. Like you'll take like images from every angle, like with rulers next to them, close-ups and far away and next to other things that are, similar, or next to your original drawing, maybe, if you want to compare that. And you'll highlight things and ask questions and try in the simplest way possible to communicate that to the factory you're working with, like all of your comments. And eventually you get what's a pre-production sample, and you bring that to your boss, and then you're like, all right, this is it. What we talked about, it is real. This is the real price of it. This is what it looks like. This is how I think it should be packaged. And really, that's kind of like the big moment. That's it. If it gets approved, then you just keep going. You might pitch it. You might already have a place for it in the store. And that's the consistent in my day. Like, that's the thing that always happens.
Have you ever had an idea that was just a lightning bolt winner right off the bat? And
Right.
you went, oh my God, this is it. This is the toy of the year. Or does everything require this much finessing?
Right. Yeah. No matter what it is, you're going to develop it. You want to develop it because better ideas will come through that process. But I've definitely had ideas, and I don't know if I can say this one yet, so I won't. But there is a product coming out very soon that was the last product I worked on before I left my last job. That was really one of those moments where I was like, vintage is in, and I want to make a craft product. And it was like, these two things combined makes this. And it was just an idea. And we still developed visually how that would look, like what it would turn out to be. But that idea stayed the same all the way through the development process, for sure. Independent toy inventors are a thing. But what happens when you're just an independent toy inventor, usually the way that you work is you come up with a concept and you'll get it illustrated, you'll make a working sample, and then you get connected to companies like manufacturers, like Hasbro, like Creative Kids, the company I used to work for, and you say, hey, I've got this invention, and why don't you license it from me? And what that means is they'll pay you a percentage of royalties to take your concept and manufacture it and mass produce it. So in that case, then you are the inventor, but then they'll take that idea and they'll develop it further. But the bones of what you invented is what they're paying you for.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
At what point are kids brought in? Because that, I think, was always the dream when we were kids, is I want to be one of those kids who gets to go play at a toy company and tell them if the toys are good. Is that a real thing? Do kids get to do that?
So at the companies I've worked at, I've only been at one where I actually got to hold a test group. I actually got to hold a test group and like make an announcement for it, an advertisement for it, and say, you'll get paid this much and we want you to come test our products.
Oh my God, they get paid?
Yeah, they get paid. And sometimes they get like food and travel. Yeah, and they get product. But I did recently see appear on my I think I saw it appear on my Instagram feed or something that like Mattel or Hasbro, I can't remember which one, is hiring for like kids to be a part of their test group. Like they listed it as like hiring, which is really cute. But that part's expensive. And I think that a lot of companies, maybe too many, skip on that part. But it definitely is like, for the last company I was with, it would happen accidentally. Like their kids would come into the office because they're children of the people that work there, and they would take my product and do things with it. And then I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Or it would happen at a photo shoot when you're like photographing the finished product, but then they're asking questions and they're doing things, and you're like, oh, that's a great idea for the next toy. So I am trying to teach people that follow me and learn with me on my podcast, Making in the Toy Industry, like I'm trying to teach them to incorporate some testing into your development process, right? Like you gotta plan to like have people that you're not related to play with your product and watch what they're thinking and what they really feel about it.
I have to tell you, as a mom, there was a real distinction between the toys that I could see were made for me and the toys that were made for my kids. And usually we had no interest in each other's toys.
Yeah.
But the truly magical ones were the ones that, and I see this in movies and books too. The magical ones are the ones that they love and I love, and they're so rare. And that must be the real lightning strike for a toy maker, when a mom is perfectly happy to buy it, a mom or a dad, and the kid is begging for it as well.
I don't think that enough people focus on that. So that's what I'm hoping to change. But I think also with social media getting bigger and bigger and like being able to control what's popular and what's hot and what's not, it's making it so that parents and kids have more control over what the product is. Like you look at Kickstarter, people are doing what their customers want directly, right? They're not just making decisions for Walmart or for Target. They're making decisions for mom and kid. And that, I think it's going to happen more now. Yeah.
And I would think that people who are developing toys for places like Walmart and Target, they're also very much directed by franchises, right? Like Disney and Marvel and all that. And that's not necessarily an inventive toy place to be, is it?
No. Yeah. So what happens is those licenses are going to control they're going to control the look of the toy, sometimes the function, like they make sure it has to relate directly to what the character can do. But how innovative it is usually up to the toy company. But the limiter becomes the retailer, because the retailer, the Walmart, the Target, the Urban Outfitters, they're the ones that are saying that's too expensive and I'm not putting that on my shelf because no one's going to buy it. Or that's not pink enough and it needs to be more pink. Like they're the ones saying that. So that's interesting. They control more than you think they do.
So I have this image of you in your house, and in my mind, your house is sort of a combination of one of the castle in Harry Potter and Willy Wonka. Like I'm imagining this absolutely joyful, magical existence that you have. And then you chose this book.
Right. I do have a hot pink wall in my apartment. I have a hot pink wall, and I also have a clear shelving unit filled with lovely, positive toys.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I bet kids love coming to your house.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice place.
Best experience.
It's not the hot zone.
Well, so what role did reading play in your childhood? Because you obviously must have been a kid who loved to play, clearly.
Yeah.
Were you one who would sit down with a book a lot?
Yeah. So I went to a private school and they had a lot of required reading. So I had to read a lot of things, like a lot of summer books and a lot of reading that they wanted us to do that I didn't love. But every once in a while, my sister would recommend books to me, and she's 8 years older than me. That's probably why I got the hot zone from her. But she would recommend books to me. And I remember the very first book she recommended to me, I loved also. And so after that, I just kept asking her, I was like, what should I read now? What should I read now? So she would just recommend books to me, and that's what would happen. And also when I would ask her, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? She'd be like, go look it up in the encyclopedia. So she made me read. Yeah. So that's what.
So at 12 years old, she gives you this book.
Yeah, I was about 12. I'm pretty sure I was like 12. Yeah.
I still can't get over that.
Yeah.
And your first thought is not, I want to climb into a hole, but your first thought is, this is my favorite book.
My first thought was like, should I be a scientist?
Wow. It does make it very exciting looking.
Yeah.
Can you describe the plot of this book for people who maybe haven't read it?
I mean, the plot of this book is pretty much like, it's like something bigger or worse than the Ebola outbreak happens and escapes through the entire world, killing everyone. But they like but the best part, I think, is how they describe how it kills you, how it like, I think I'm remembering right from I'm 12, but I think it like boils the blood inside of your skin or something, inside of your body until like
that was special.
Right. So good. So good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed the liquefied organs. That was really,
really I forgot
special.
the liquefied organs. That was good stuff.
And so you were obviously a much tougher kid than I was. This wasn't a book. It wasn't a book that kept you up at night, because 12-year-old Julie would have probably never slept again.
No,
honestly.
Stop. Really?
No,
I don't
really.
know. But also back then, like I felt like nothing similar to that had happened in the real world that I had lived in. So it felt very much like a fiction, you know?
I see.
So like it was, oh, that's cool. Was weird world in which these things, I think that might also be like, I really love post-apocalyptic movies and books big time. So like that is how I saw this book. I was like, interesting. That would be crazy if that happened. Fast forward to 2020. I mean, it's like,
well, and that was the thing that really got me about this is, you know, at the end, there's kind of this chapter of, boy, we really dodged a bullet.
right.
Because we didn't let this Ebola outbreak get out
Yeah.
into the world.
Right.
But then it does kind of end with, but there is one out there that's going to get out.
And, yeah.
And to be reading it right now was like,
right.
Holy hell. This is what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's a good book. I mean, I remember just going through it so fast. It was like, and when I saw there was a movie, I was like, what? I was like, I need to watch that movie.
Tell me about the movie, because I haven't, and I'm not going to. I mean, my God, come on.
It's not that bad. The movie is not as bad as the book, I don't think.
Is it a movie or a series?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Hold on. It's a mini series. It's a mini series. Oh, well, I watched it like it was a movie. So it's 6 episodes.
You binged through it the way you binged through the book.
I sure did. I didn't even know it was different parts. Okay. Well, there's that. So
so how does it compare?
I mean, I loved it. I mean, I loved it because I knew what to expect. But I remember it was so fun because I remember as I was watching it, the things playing back, my memories were playing back of reading the book, right? And from so long ago. I remember I at first didn't like the last scene where they were when they were trying to inject the monkeys, to kill the monkeys. The very last scene. I remember thinking that wasn't the way I pictured it. But then, and I remember thinking like, oh, this isn't good enough. But then it got real tense. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, this is the best. It's so good.
That was one of the scariest scenes in the book too, where they had to go kill all those infected monkeys. And one of the monkeys got out. Does that happen?
Yes. And he was like running around. Yeah. That was good. The other good part of the movie was seeing, okay, you're not going to like this, but it was when they put the monkey in a bag, in the garbage bag, and they put him in the back of the car, and you got to see it. And it just was so stupid, and you're seeing it leaking and all over the road. And then when they open it and it's just liquefied, and the woman is just like, what the fuck are you, why would you put this in this bag? It was just seeing that was well, I guess seeing that, maybe it's because I was also an adult, was just wow, at any time I could be on the highway and just some idiot could have taken this animal from a lab and thought this would be a good idea.
I've got a sick monkey. I better put him in my car.
I know
that, but that scene in the book almost, it made my palms are sweating right now talking to you about it. It was so scary to think, and that's exactly what I thought too. At any point, a car could be passing us with an Ebola monkey in the trunk that's ready to kill me.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what I think anyway, all the time.
Not helping the anxiety here in the quarantine. No. It is a great book, though.
I completely agree with you. And I think there is such incredible talent in being able to take, because there are some complex, and I'm not a very sciencey person, and there are some complex scientific and medical concepts going on, and I don't know much about the military, and they got really into the military structure.
It does, yeah.
And it was a fast read, even for these things that I don't know anything about. Yeah.
I was 12, so
yeah. So I have this theory. I know people who have very scary and dark jobs. I've met people who work in morgues. I've met people who are pediatric cancer doctors. I've met people with some very downer jobs, and I've noticed that when they relax, they tend to go for, I am reading a romance novel, I'm reading an adventure. Like they need to
Separate,
put their brains somewhere else. So I started thinking, are you drawn towards thrillers in general?
Yeah.
Like in movies, is that where you're going to go? Do you need to go somewhere a little darker because you're
Oh, I go straight horror.
Do you really?
Well, yeah, but I also believe in paranormal, so I don't like to go straight horror alone. So if someone is not there with me, then yes, I will go more thriller. But yes.
Okay.
Yes, horror.
You believe in paranormal, meaning if you watch it by yourself, you think that they're going to come after you?
Yeah, I feel like it's like awakening, and I feel that I'm a sensitive person, so I also feel like talking about it, being aware of it, and also I just know that my own anxiety, I won't be able to sleep afterwards. Like I need other energy to feed off of a little while afterwards. So yeah, there's that.
So you're confirming my theory then, because I was wondering about you, and I was thinking, I wonder if all people kind of go in the opposite direction from their day job when they're looking for recreation, if it's natural to feed the other part of our artistic interests.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I never thought about that. And I did have a little bit, at least what I would say was, I don't know, a little bit of a darker childhood. So like maybe that's why.
What do you mean you had a darker childhood?
Well, like someone in my family struggled with addiction, and that created this very like unsafe feeling at home. And I grew up in a really dangerous neighborhood. Like I would hear gunshots and like see people like running away from situations. But I also went to a private school. So I had this like really weird juxtaposition of like, the ghetto and danger and stay inside. And then everybody at school was like extremely wealthy and very much not in the ghetto, and it was, so I don't know. So maybe there was also that, like it's not that I had a bad childhood, but I had a very emotionally like traumatizing, like kind of like exhausting childhood. It was like watching your parent deal with an addiction and your other parent dealing with that addiction. And then it would just turn into things like, lost Christmas gifts because someone came and stole it to pay for things from the addiction. And like, like really, or like being taken on, like basically drug runs, like just like things like that. So, I guess I was always, I don't know, I guess that might have made me a little bit darker, but that's,
But you really went to the extremes in both levels then, because your job is really creating idyllic childhoods.
Right. And I think
kids.
Yeah, I think that might have a lot to do with it, because I definitely see kids, and I told people this before, like I love kids. I always thought I would be a teacher or a child psychologist, and then I thought emotionally I might be too sensitive to be a psychologist for children. So then teachers don't make enough money. So eventually I was going to be a children's exhibition designer. I was very into like educating kids, and that might be because I felt like my talents weren't nurtured enough as I was a kid, and I had to make up for that as an adult. And I also feel that I could have accomplished and been so many other things, or so many more things, had I been nurtured and had I been taught. So like there is definitely a part of me that wants to make products that, nurtures kids, like gives them the childhood and gives them the outlets to explore their creativity and their knowledge, so anytime I get to work on products that do that, it's awesome.
And now you nurture other people who want to do what it is that you do. How does your coaching service work?
Right. So people reach out to me if they want one-on-one coaching. That's cool. I can't accept that many people. So when we do one-on-one coaching, it's really like, do a brand assessment, tell me what your needs are, what can I help you with? Maybe it's marketing like online, maybe it's developing a physical product, maybe it's sourcing factories, things like that. But since I don't have that much of a bandwidth, I decided, I was like, oh, I'm going to make an online course. And then maybe that way it can, one, be more affordable, because smaller people just starting out, like mompreneurs, like people doing this as a side hustle, they don't want to spend like tens of thousands of dollars hiring me, like for like a year. Like that's not what they're trying to do. So I figured if I could build out this online course that would be a fraction of the cost and walk them through in a few weeks, like what you need to set up for yourself to create this product, it would save them time. It would make sure that they make products that people actually want to buy, and then show them where to go to kick it off, to get started, to market it, to produce it, and all that stuff.
I write romance novels, and there have been a lot of jokes over the last year over what are the romance novels that come out in 2021. What are they going to look like? And we all write jokey stories about, hookups with masks on and, safe sex with hand sanitizer. And, okay. It's very sad. But as we're recording this, we are coming upon the fall and then the Christmas season.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what are going to be the toys this year? What's going to be the hit? But I also kind of want to ask you, please tell me that there will not be pandemic themed toys, because I think that will bum me out.
Well, there definitely were a couple of like DIY masks toys, like create your own masks. There are,
you know what? I can see that being fun, because little girls always want to sparkle it and all that kind of stuff.
See?
Yeah, I would have done that if I had littles.
Yeah, right? There definitely like a lot of like germ related books I'm seeing. And then and then there are some toys that weren't actually designed to be for the pandemic, but are becoming popular because of the pandemic. Like there is like a germ board game that I can't remember the name of it right now, that got popular, I think it might be called Pandemic. Actually, now that I think about it, it might be called like Pandemic or like Outbreak or like Virus or something. And it got popular because of the pandemic. So, but what's really interesting is a lot of toy companies are really afraid to say anything or to capitalize on it in the wrong way or in,
Sure.
So people are afraid of that. But there are like, people thinking about safety cleaning kits and like hand sanitizer things. I hope that there will eventually be like maybe plush things that help kids not touch doors or something like that.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. But other than that, it's very much like everyone's focusing on homeschooling. So they're just focusing on toys that like will let parents like get some peace while their kids are stuck with them for the foreseeable future.
And I thought this was going to be the year of all the Mulan toys.
Yeah. Licensed toys were so driven by movies. And I think that I think what I could foresee happening, I haven't read anything about this yet, but what I could foresee happening is them offering something on pre-order maybe, or limited edition. But like movies, they typically had a certain number that they were safe and comfortable with. If there's a movie out, we're going to order this many pieces and it'll sell. But now that there is no movie, there still is there's still media, it's still online, but nobody's comfortable with those numbers yet, right?
Sure.
And what you saw with what was it? Was it The Mandalorian, where they had the Baby Yoda?
Oh,
right. So Baby Yoda, nobody thought that was going to be big, and they didn't produce product for it. And then people produced product for it, like random people produced like unofficial Baby Yoda merch. And then the IP owners fast followed and produced. And I think that might be what happens again, but maybe they'll be more prepared for it. Like they might gear up, but just not press the button of production, to order it.
What kind of toy do you want to exist that doesn't exist out there yet?
Ooh, interesting. Well, I mean, that's just, I feel like I have a couple of ideas I don't want to share yet, but
okay.
But all of my ideas, obviously, number one. But I would love, there is like a system I would love to exist that doesn't exist yet. And it would be one that allows toys to be recycled and shared a little bit. It is on some small scale available, but I don't know. I would really love it if there was a toy that kind of either grew with your child or was recycled down to the next age child so that it wasn't just thrown away. And it could grow with your child. Like maybe it's made in parts, and maybe when they're one age, they get one part. And then when they're another age, they get the other parts that combine to create something else. And then maybe they get, so that it could grow with them. That would be awesome. I haven't seen anything like that.
You mean aside from like when your kids outgrow things and you just take them to the Goodwill, or pass them to your neighbor down the street who has younger kids? You're talking about more of a company sponsored program.
Yeah, exactly. Like when they'll pick it up and then they'll,
Do you think we'll trend more toward, as we're in this pandemic and you're seeing all these things happening, people are getting into baking bread and all of a sudden everybody has a garden and we're all becoming pioneers again. Like people are sort of rediscovering,
we are,
It's so true. Do you think the next year will be a bunch of toys, woodworking, and do you think we'll sort of trend backward a little bit in toy production?
That's not a bad. That's not a bad. That's great. Actually, I'm going to write that down.
I just made you your next million.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, because like visually, graphics had already gone vintage because of Stranger Things and a couple of other shows. Vintage is already back in design style. And yeah, that's a great point that it might go more pioneer, but I'm still on top level. Went deep, but I'm on top level on that. I'm thinking like the industry actually has already grown 16% since the pandemic, right? Arts and crafts, games and puzzles. And that's because people are stuck at home. So I would love if just it keeps growing in that way because people have time to play. They need toys to occupy their kids. And honestly, I feel like the industry needs to do a better job of expressing to the world that you need toys, because everybody else is marketing to them like you need an iPad, you need a movie, you need a smoothie. But like the toy industry is not marketing that, like not just like you need a He-Man doll or like a action figure, but I mean like marketing the idea that you need toys,
Are you a reader now these days?
Yeah, so but it's very business focused. It is not really fun focused. There's one. Well, I only read on recommendation because I have a couple of books in my apartment that I've bought like when I'm at an airport and I'm like, this sounds good. I'm going to read this on the plane. And then I fall asleep and I read like one page. And I've learned that I just need to be recommended books because I have no patience. I have zero patience, and you need to tell me it's good or else I'm going to tap out real early. So the last book I was recommended was actually World War Z.
Oh my gosh. There you go again.
It was great. I've never finished the last couple of pages. I'll read like 80% of the book and then like get busy. But other than that, I read a lot of read and listen to like Audible, just business books. Like I'm always just trying to learn. So I would say like, I don't know, once a month, probably not more than that. Yeah.
What's the most recent business book that you enjoyed?
Ooh, The Art of Click.
What's that?
It's just a book about psychology and getting people in marketing for online. The copywriting.
Click. Oh, so click meaning getting people to click on your site or click on something. Oh, I see.
Very copywriting focused. Yeah, I like that book. I guess that's not really. Yeah, I also read Pictionary, the Game Changer book. That was a story about, but that was because I had a guess, but that was a story about Rob Angel. He was the creator of Pictionary and he wrote a book. So I read it so that he could come on my show and we could talk about it. So I read that book as well, which is great. His story of coming up with Pictionary and launching it is awesome.
That is so funny you say that because my family has rediscovered Pictionary since pandemic times. Oh,
really?
And they play it at least once a week. It's the funniest thing. It sat untouched in our cabinet for years, and now it's all they want to play anymore.
That's crazy. See, we got to figure out how to keep that around, because what's crazy about all this is people are like, oh, nobody wants, what people used to say is nobody wants toys because there's iPads and there's TVs and there's this. And obviously that's not the case, because there's
Mhm.
still iPads and TVs. And if anything, people should be playing with those more because they're home all the time. But that's not the case. There's something else that we're not realizing that we have to tap into that people need, right?
Yeah. There is a
Yeah.
real fatigue from communicating on screens all day for these kids who are talking to their teachers all day on a screen.
Yeah.
It's an exhaustion.
But how do you keep that when everything goes back to normal? That's the thing.
That's the question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do.
I'm going to need a copy of this interview. I got to replay it to get the ideas flowing.
You got it. Azhelle, I cannot tell you what a delight this has been talking to you. You are so funny. And as I've said 10 times, I think you have a magical job. And
Thank you.
it just delights me to know that there are people in the world who make toys for a living. That just
Yeah.
brings me so much joy.
It is awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so glad you reached out.
Will you tell our listeners where they can find you online and learn more about your work? And
yes. Head over to thetoycoach.com to learn more about me and get toy tips and advice. And if you're interested in my online course, you can sign up at toycreatorsacademy.com.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Take care.
Thanks for listening, bookworms. For more information on this episode and links to everything we discussed, please go to our website, bestbookeverpodcast.com, or follow us on Instagram at bestbookeverpodcast. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and you can find me everywhere as Julie Wrote a Book. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use. Reviews really help our visibility to new listeners, and we are so grateful for everyone. If you want access to exclusive content, including extra interview time with our guests, advance notice of the books we're going to discuss, monthly curated book selections, and more, go to patreon.com/bestbookever. That's patreon.com/bestbookever to support us. Your financial support really helps with the expenses of running this podcast. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you at the library.